Andy Burnham's going to need all his popularity over the next few months. As Labour starts the process of selecting a candidate for the Makerfield by-election, the Greater Manchester Mayor is already out campaigning, with a helping hand from Josh Simons, the MP who stood aside to make way for the so-called King of the North.
I think it's a big moment in British politics. No, what I mean is I think we need to listen to what people are saying here. You know, the call from the gentleman there is you need to change Labour, you know, get it back on the side of working class people and working class communities. And I hear exactly what he's saying. Life has become unaffordable to people in places like this. Britain has been on a path for 40 years that started with deindustrialisation, deregulation, privatisation. It's left areas without good jobs and people unable to afford the basics. And I'm saying we need a different path completely.
What is that path?
Put more things back under stronger public control: energy, housing, water, transport. I've done that with the buses in Greater Manchester, so I was the first to do it. You know, Margaret Thatcher deregulated them. No, but I'm just giving you an example. Yeah, sure. You know, she deregulated them. I put them, and then they just work for the private shareholders and not for the paying public. I put them back under public control. We've got £2 fares. So you take that principle and you apply it to energy and you apply it to water. That's what I think we need to do. The country gave away its control of the basic things that people depend upon every day. And that was a big mistake in my view.
People say you're taking a big gamble here. Do you see it that way?
Well, it's not so much about me, really.
It is, though, isn't it?
Well,
I get what you're saying, but it is inevitably about you, isn't it?
It's about what people are saying. All right. It's about what people are saying. I've been in politics 25 years, and I've heard this cry about we're fed up, politics isn't working, you know, Westminster isn't answering things. And I've seen this frustration build all of those years, and the gap between sort of politicians and the public is as wide as it's ever been. And I don't blame anyone who's left our party and voted for other parties. You know, I really don't. You know, our party needs to do better. And it's kind of where I'm coming from in this campaign. I'm going to be really honest about that on doorsteps. I'm not going to spend my time point scoring or these are saying this and this. I'll be saying, no, I'm hearing you. We're going to really change things and put the country on a different path. We've got to get back talking the language of reindustrialisation. Margaret Thatcher deindustrialised these communities in the past. That's been devastating over the 4 decades since. We've got to talk seriously about reindustrialising the Northwest, getting those good jobs, changing education so it's not all about the university route, but it's also about technical paths for kids to get into those good jobs. So this is the kind of change that I'm calling for, and I'm not going to spend any time sort of pointing out the flaws in everyone else's policies, point scoring. I'm going to talk about what I believe needs to change.
200 miles away in London, change was also being talked up by Wes Streeting, who confirmed he will stand in any Labour leadership contest.
The voters did more than send Labour a message last week. They issued a warning that unless we change course, Labour risk being the handmaidens of Nigel Farage and the breakup of the United Kingdom. That's why we need a proper contest where all candidates can put their best foot forward.
The former Health Secretary also said the UK should rejoin the EU one day, a position that marks a clear dividing line with Reform, whose strength in Makerfield was made clear at the local elections. Nigel Farage's party won all but one of the seats contested on Wigan Council. Were you very deliberate in choosing this seat because it is Reform facing?
I was very deliberate in speaking to Josh, and both of us have kind of got the same diagnosis. I was the MP for Lee years ago, Josh the MP for Makerfield. We have both felt the frustration of facing a Westminster system that just does not have answers for these streets, these communities. And, you know, we both feel a big change moment is needed. And I wouldn't have just gone anywhere like a carpetbagger, any old constituency. It matters to me that I have a connection. I live literally on the edge of this constituency. My kids went to school a few hundred yards down the road. I know people here. I know how they think, how they feel. I want to do whatever I can to make Labour a party that they can believe in again, a party that's solidly on the side of working class people.
And if you do, if you do win the by-election, how soon will your declaration for the leadership come?
just not the issue. The issue is winning a by-election with what I'm saying. You know, it's not about, you know, necessarily the next thing. I know people will say that. I've made a whole career. Well, just let me answer your question though. I've made a whole career fighting for people in this part of the world. I fought for compensation for the miners when I was an MP for Lee. I fought for justice for the Hillsborough families. I fought Boris Johnson in the pandemic when he was treating people here in Makerfield as second-class citizens. That's what I've done. I've taken that fight to another level as mayor, and yes, I will carry on taking that fight to the highest level.
They might be saying it in different ways, but these are both men who are serious about becoming the next Prime Minister.
Well, the former Labour Minister John Denham is now Director of the Centre for English Identity and Politics at Southampton University. I began by asking him when he last saw Britain in such a state of flux.
I don't think there's ever been anything quite like this. There were clearly very difficult political times during the 1970s, but I think we need to see what's happening here much more as the same thing pretty much as is happening in the whole of Western Europe. There are basically three things that underline the questions you've asked. The first is, it's such an uncertain time economically that voters want their national governments to protect their interests in a way that they haven't done for many years. But those national governments, the second thing, they've lost a lot of economic power and sovereignty. So it's really hard for them to deliver what people want. And then you've got the third factor, which is that right across Europe, nations have been reshaped by migration over the last 20, 30, 40 years. And that leaves some sections of society, not all of them, but some saying, well, what's our nation anymore? Even who are the people who make up the nation? So you can see in this, the Labour Party problems are the problems of being a nation state government whose powers have been hollowed out. And the sort of national populism is people coming forward and saying, well, your leaders have sold you out. And let's put the nation first. And by the nation, we don't mean these minorities and we don't mean these migrants.
And we're seeing some of that being acted out on the streets of London today with these massive marches. Is anyone going to be in a better position to channel that anger and come up with solutions, whether they're called Andy Burnham, Wes Streeting, or indeed the current incumbent Keir Starmer?
Government has to lead a process of nation building. Instead of just thinking you can stick a union flag over your shoulder which says I'm a patriot, actually talk about the nation we belong to, thrash out the shared values that are going to hold us together. So I think we've got to take national cohesion away from something that a junior minister in one government department does, unless there's a crisis, and put it right at the centre of everything government does and said we're going to serve the common good with our policies.
And is that something that Keir Starmer has singularly failed to do so far? Is that why he's in so much trouble?
He has failed to tell any story about the nation, and it's very clear even from his most recent the document so-called about cohesion from the government. He's not interested in what Britain really is. He just reels off platitudes of tolerance or values or whatever, actually not getting to the grips with the fact that we don't all agree what values we want to hold the nation together. We don't agree what the welfare system should look like, who gets access to housing, how the economy should be run in the interests of ordinary people.
Okay, so it's early days in terms of the Makersfield by-election campaign that all our eyes are on. I mean, are you any clearer what the vision for governing Britain is like under an Andy Burnham?
He is both a very strong Labour politician and a less tribal Labour politician. I think what he's found in Manchester is you can only be effective if actually you're working across party boundaries because you're working with different councils. There's an element in his politics there which is both broadening out in a way that is necessary, but a core of Labour values, left of centre values, which a Prime Minister would need to have.
And if Andy Burnham were to win this by-election, do you think then we're going to have a quick coronation, or will there be a contest within the party still?
I think the momentum would be that if Andy Burnham wins the by-election, it's very difficult to see somebody else effectively challenging him.
OK, but Wes Streeting did say today that if there was a contest, he's going to run in that contest. And then he threw in as his gambit, I want Britain to rejoin the European Union.
I'd be quite surprised if all candidates aren't talking about Britain being much, much closer or maybe in the European Union at the end of the next Parliament. We shall have to see what they say. What I think will be interesting is how are they going to persuade the sort of people who voted leave because they wanted to protect national sovereignty and stop immigration, that the Europe that we would join still enables this country to protect its own interests. Leadership is going to be able to say, if we're going to do this, how do we take the vast majority of people with us, not just say, let's divide the spoils the other way next time?
John Denham, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Matt.